All right, here he is, Cage Golding again with an update, and why an independent may be actually causing a few chinks in the armor of Hillary Clinton, Gary Johnson, in just a moment. Go ahead.
So taking a look at some of the bigger swing states, Donald Trump's still in the lead in Florida. Pennsylvania looks like it's going blue to Hillary Clinton. Michigan, North Carolina, Virginia, Ohio, and Wisconsin, all swing states, Trump has the lead. Very early still, but Trump does have the lead going into all the states. Right now, Trump does have the electoral college or vote lead, 129 to 97. So that's important, but we are seeing a little bit of shifting from what we expected into something that could show we're going to be here for a really long night.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, Virginia, now Hillary Clinton has already won New York, but Virginia getting a little dicey right now, and I mentioned Gary Johnson. He really is someone that if this thing ends up going in Donald Trump's favor, I'm sure we're going to get some sort of card or maybe a candygram tomorrow to thank him for what he has done thus far for Donald Trump. The professor will explain.
I was just looking at some of the returns in Virginia. They're up to 84, 85%. So the key really right now is where is that big precinct that's out. If it's Northern Virginia, that's a big deal for Hillary Clinton. That's the kind of place she should clean up. If it's further into the southern part of the state, that's where Donald Trump is likely to get an advantage. But the key to look at some of those numbers, she is trailing him by about 80,000 votes. And Gary Johnson's picked up about 85,000 votes in Virginia. Now, that doesn't mean every single person who's voted for Johnson, would have voted for Clinton if he weren't on the ballot. That's not my point. My point, though, is that given that third option, people may have said, you know what, if I don't like either one of these two, I'll go with the third choice, and maybe those third choice votes are having more of an impact than perhaps they otherwise thought might have been the case.
Dr. Terry Madonna from the polling center at Franklin and Marshall tweeting just moments ago, NBC talking about whoever the president is, they're going to have to deal with the Republican Congress.
Absolutely.
It seems like the Republicans across the country are doing rather well, and a lot of people, including me, thought they might have some issues because of all of the separation from their candidate, Donald Trump.
Well, the question was, would there be significant coattails for Donald Trump? We knew that was not going to be the case. People who are voting for Trump and voting for Republicans are not necessarily doing those as sort of the same issue or conjoined in any way. The bigger question was, did we anticipate Hillary Clinton having any coattails? And I think we expected she probably wouldn't. Largely, again, because her popularity, whether I'm really voting for Clinton because I didn't want to vote for Trump, etc. Bottom line is we're seeing successes for Republicans across the country, which comes as a bit of a surprise. Again, if you presume that the Republican brand was damaged because of Trump being the standard bearer. But again, for Clinton, the biggest problem might be that eastern seaboard right there, Virginia and North Carolina. If she cannot flip both of those blue before the end of the evening, her path gets a little dicier as you head west, because while she'll pick up states out there, she may not pick them up in sufficient number to get her to 270 electoral college votes.
So in a nutshell, if Trump actually hangs on in places like Virginia and gets a win, this could be a longer night than expected.
A longer night than expected, not only in terms of the anticipation being that these Eastern time zone states would decide the election. If they get split 3-3, 2-4, especially if the 4 goes in Trump's favor, now you begin to say, okay, will Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, the West Coast be enough for her? Arizona suddenly then becomes a very important state out west because of its electoral college votes.
All right, listen, my curfew, folks, it's about time. I've got to go home. But before I leave, I just want to thank everyone. They've done such a tremendous job. And you know what? Just to watch these young people work, it gives me a lot of hope as far as my industry is concerned, that the future will be extremely bright. And as all of the technology evolves, like this AT&T phone, and I'm hoping for that AT&T Time Warner merger, these are going to be the pioneers. These are going to be the people that are bringing you the information that really we need in this country. And it's good news, and especially when it's something such as a presidential election. Before we leave, you've had Sam and Vince on for a couple of hours. Now you have a whole other crew coming on for 2 more hours. So you're going to really roll until midnight. Throughout the campus, they're watching this. They've got people strategically placed out and about at various locations covering this thing as well. what would you expect, in your professional opinion, as this thing does unfold, and all of the things that we've seen? And I just saw on Cage's computer that Trump is hanging on to as it said, a razor-thin lead in a very key state, Florida. And Mark Rubio, by the way, reelected again as a senator in Florida. So that's a good thing. Jeb Bush was tweeting about that and congratulating him. But in your opinion, what we're seeing now, what do you think is going on? Do you have any idea? As we move
I honestly think the next hour-ish is going to tell us, because that next hour, so that takes us to ballpark 10:15, 10:30 Eastern time. We're going to see Virginia decided in that hour. We're probably going to see North Carolina decided in that hour. We may see Florida decided in that hour. If those three go to one of those candidates, that's probably your next president. If they split them, then Arizona and Nevada become extremely important in the calculus, and we know that those polls don't close until the 11 o'clock hour, so I'm really going to look like heck tomorrow morning.
Well, by the way, his was it your dryer or washer went on
the apparently our dishwasher went on the fritz, and the 17-year-old called my wife, and they concocted a plan to clean up the kitchen and order a new one while I'm here. So,
well, let me just say this,
which means another issue that I can't screw up.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Well, let me just say this. I got to believe that Walter Cronkite never got a call about a washer on election night. But if they would have had smartphones, his wife would have been texting him too, and that's a good thing. One more little just promotion about what you do here with Carrie and how important she is, and all of the I guess the intricacies that take place to make this thing so seamless. Give them some love.
Well, you know, what we try to do is we try to put essentially a firewall up where the academic side of the house stays as much out of the way from the student media side of the house as we can. And when you've got somebody who's your student media advisor, who's been in newsrooms, you know, day in, day out, for the good stories, the bad stories, the unusual stories, she's seen in darn near probably every possibility you can imagine. And so when it comes with working to all these people in terms of how do we need to cover this, what are some of the questions we need to consider as we cover that, she's able to provide an answer not from the sort of, well, this is what I think you ought to do, but it's much more from the, here's what history has told us we ought to consider.
Yeah, and her husband actually teaches here in the spring, and he teaches theater and film down at Point Park, so it's in her DNA as well as it is his. The thing that I did want to bring up about this election before we say goodnight, I think it proved why Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were in Pennsylvania so much and with so much regularity, even if they had to come across the country 2 and 3 times in the same week to do it, because they knew this was going to be important. And the way the vote is trending in some of these eastern states, I think it's very evident to say the people that were running their campaign understood that, knew that, and I think the voters are basically showing everyone, yes, this is why they were on the East Coast so much.
And if Richard Nixon were alive tonight, I wonder if he'd be starting to tell us about the silent majority. Because maybe, just maybe, that silent majority's showing up.
Well, Anthony, I said that earlier. I mean, no matter what polling numbers we're saying, we talked about this on the radio, you can't argue the fact that Trump was bringing thousands of people wherever he went. And I know you could talk about reality TV star, the promoter, but this is the pulse of America. These are the people that are going to be casting ballots, and they're doing it now in such large numbers. Voter turnout is off the hook, and I think that's one of the reasons why these big battleground states and these eastern states haven't fallen yet.
They haven't fallen yet, and you know, maybe what we're seeing potentially, and again, it's too soon to confirm it, but maybe what we're seeing to some extent is plenty of voters who said, I'm voting for Clinton or I'm voting for Johnson, when in reality they were voting for Donald Trump all along. Again, we'll know a lot more in the next hour, but where we stand right now tells us that the route that we expected is not on, and it may not be on for the rest of the night.
Now, you see, here's what he was doing, folks. I'm not leaving now for another hour. You see, I was trying to get out of here, but I'm going to stay for a little bit longer, maybe one more hour, because I got to see who's standing when they raise the hand of the victor as far as the next president. Do you think that Hillary Clinton's nervous right now?
No, I'd be if I were her. And I would really be nervous if I were her if the data coming out of Virginia and North Carolina and Florida tells me that the votes that are left are not in her strong spots. If the votes that are still left to be counted are in places like Broward County in Florida, Northern Virginia, then for her, I'd breathe a little easier. But if it's elsewhere in the state, oh boy, look out.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. We continue from the Media Center here at Robert Morris University in Moon Township with your Pratte Pack. Good evening.